This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
Marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug in the United States. Dangerous drug.
It is clear, however, that if left unchecked, Saddam Hussein will continue to increase his capacity to wage biological and chemical warfare and will keep trying to develop nuclear weapons.
Being a pro-war pundit means never having to say you're sorry.
William Crystal led the march to Baghdad behind a battery of Washington microphones. He has not responded to any of our requests for an interview, but he still shows up on TV as an expert.
He's got to begin to show progress in 3, 4, 5 months once the U.S. troops get in.
The Times liberal hawk Thomas Friedman also said no.
We're not trying to show you propaganda. We're just showing you what is. We're just showing you what is.
Citizens of the internet, hope you're all doing well today. Where am I? Get a little centered here in this frame. A lot has been happening in the political realm this week, and it's a lot of what I see as good things, and those things being, well, I mean, I'll just list them off the top of my head. First, Tulsi Gabbard being confirmed as the Director of National Intelligence. RFK Jr. now being confirmed as the Director of Health and Human Services. And the announcement that a deal is being made to end the Ukraine war. So those are three things that, let's be honest, are Democratic agenda items. Someone like Tulsi Gabbard, I mean, until a couple of years ago, a lot of people are going to argue now, oh, she's a Zionist, whatever. Yes, she is, but so was every single person that had any political clout on the Democratic side. Look at Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are the leadership of the Democratic Party right now. And on the Trump side too, everyone pays fealty to that master. So it's one of those things where I understand, and listen, I have to say, I've been on Twitter lately. I've been kind of responding to some of my good friends on the left, some of the people like Nick Cruz and some other people do dissidents, about some of the stuff that's going on, because I think there's there's definitely a tendency for people in our space to dunk on people on the right or the MAGA movement. And this is the other thing. I don't think that the terms right and left are even relevant anymore. And that's one of the reasons this whole thing has been frustrating for me, because again, like I just outlined for you, 3 of Trump's biggest action items so far have been what I would consider, from my era of the Democratic Party, to be Democratic agenda items. Getting someone like Tulsi Gabbard, a woman of color who served valiantly in the military and served in Congress, confirmed to a post like that, especially Director of National Intelligence, to the Democrats, if I remember correctly, a lot of the left under Obama were for Snowden. Tulsi has said she would not call Edward Snowden a traitor in those hearings. And that says something about her. And, I understand that also people are like, oh, she's a shapeshifter because she kind of did this to go to the right. Not really. The Democratic Party, I think, moved away from a lot of us, definitely moved away from me. None of my political views have changed since I got into, political talk or just politics in general. My first, political exercise was volunteering phone banking for the Obama campaign back in 2007. So that was my first, political activism stint. And then after that, of course, Ron Paul, who is now might actively be part of the Trump administration. At least they're listening to things that Ron Paul says, And it's so funny when I think back on those years of my political experience, because I had a friend back then, a friend who I worked with, who was a Clinton lawyer, literally. I'm not going to say his name on here, but a guy who I worked with, a coworker. And I remember posting something about Ron Paul and he's like, oh, that guy's a white supremacist racist, you know? So even back then, it was like, that was the line that they used to take these people down. Now, you know, you can argue that a lot of these like Ron Paul types are lean into kind of like Confederate world where there is a lot of racism. I'm not going to deny that, but I've never seen Ron Paul ever say or do anything outwardly racist himself. And I think that's what's important, because when you play this association game, anyone's guilty. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, you talked to this guy who did this. Like, I didn't know he did that. Like, what? I'm supposed to vouch for him because I talked to him? That doesn't make any sense. Or we were like part of the same polo club or whatever, you know? So I think that I just wanted to say this to start. And that is that I understand the skeptic, like to give you a good example, I keep jumping all around. Let me speak clearly here. I understand the skepticism and the need to be oppositional to what's going on in the Trump administration, and the absolute necessity of holding their feet to the fire in the same way that you would a Democratic administration. And I don't think that saying like, hey, it's a win to get Tulsi Gabbard in as director of national intelligence is necessarily saying like, oh, well, everything's great now, it's perfect and everything's grand and she's perfect. No, it's saying, look, she's a flawed individual. She has some views I don't necessarily agree with. She's definitely played the game to an extent to get to where she is, but also look at what the decisions that Robert Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard made. I believe if you look at their records and who they are as people, were decisions that they made with integrity. I don't think that they made those decisions thinking, you know, absolutely Trump's going to win and I'm going to get a place. Now, to an extent, I shouldn't say that. Yes, I'm sure that they campaigned for him on the hopes that if he wins, they're going to get a seat in his administration. But it was very rocky. I think the same thing goes for Elon Musk. Elon Musk was a Democrat. I mean, I think he donated to Biden in 2020, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that Elon Musk was just a flat out Democrat. He only came on board the Trump train after the assassination attempt. And so, you know, and a lot of people think that's staged, and, you know, maybe it is. Listen, I don't claim to know. By the same token, I think if there was any evidence whatsoever that it was staged, the Democrats would have seized on that in the campaign season and used it to their advantage. So it's a little bit of a theory that I don't think holds much water in that regard. But that said, let's just take a quick break from me ranting for a second and show you just some of the absolutely pathetic things that the Democrats are doing. It's very, very sad. And you know, there's been these reports that before I jump into this, there's been these reports that the Democrats lack leadership. There's no real clear leader in the Democratic Party, obviously, because what they tried to do, I think what they banked on, and if you watch Steve Bannon talking to Jimmy last night, Jimmy asked him why, if the deep state was so against Trump, why they let him get in. And Steve Bannon said, and, you know, again, this is his take. I'm not saying that it's necessarily the truth, but it's one take on the situation. Steve Bannon said that they were so overwhelmed they couldn't stop him, and so he got in, you know, despite all the stuff that they did to try and stop him. And so, you know, maybe there's some truth to that, but I guess the point that I'm getting to with all of that is Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. were Democrats who basically, you know, have integrity. They didn't move away from the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party moved away from them. And I think the other point I want to make about the current state of politics is that, and I think I heard someone else say this, the Trump administration is almost kind of like a third party, because all of these stock and trade Republicans, the Reagan Republican types, the real like hardcore neocons, the John Boltons, the you know, Dick Cheneys, went to the Democratic side in this cycle too. So I think a lot of people, a lot of the oppositional mindset is good. Of course it's good. You should always have an oppositional mindset to power. But also you have to understand that the old paradigm of left and right does not exist anymore. That is gone. And the Democratic Party as an institution, I think, is completely a dead entity. It's, there's this clip I play in my weekend segments on the intro, and it's this guy, John Heilman from MSNBC. And he said this in like 2016, 2015, when the Democrats hijacked the primary from Bernie Sanders. He said, the Democratic Party doesn't even exist. It's basically just a shell for donor money. And so is the Republican Party. And Russ made this point today that I think is on Due Dissidence, that I think was a good point about how what this really is just oligarchy taking the control of the reins of another oligarchy, right? And I don't think he's wrong about that. But I think what he said, it was like corporatists taking over from the oligarchy. No, it's oligarchs taking from other oligarchs. But the problem with American politics in this fucking, age that we live in is oligarchs are the only way you're going to win. You have to have oligarchs on your side to win in politics, in electoral politics, So it's like Trump needs someone like an Elon Musk or an RFK to win in those. And RFK is not an oligarch per se, but he's definitely part of the aristocracy. He's a Kennedy, he's part of the political elite class. And a Tulsi Gabbard is another interesting one because she's also part of the political elite class, but she earned her way there through merit, and don't even get me started on Bernie Sanders refusing to vote for her and voting for Marco Rubio. Oh my God. So again, through that lens is how I see things and why I say the old paradigm of left versus right is completely gone. And the Democratic Party is in complete shambles right now. So on the issue of just how ridiculous the Democrats have got, they're trying to make the case that they're fighting against this oligarchic takeover by defending these entrenched agencies and that are so corrupt and bloated and just like wastefully pumping money into all kinds of things. And I have to show you this. Ayanna Pressley said the quiet part out loud. So this is one of the protests they were doing, I believe. So protest against Trump admin closing CFPB. Now listen, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is the one agency that I think actually does good things. And I don't celebrate this at all. But I think what's funny is she got her script mixed up. So listen to what she says here, because this is a protest for the CFPB. Also, let me just also say this. I don't think that these guys really care about the CFPB. What I think that they're protesting for, they dressed it up as they're upset about the CFPB because that's actually a defensible agency that Trump is defunding. They're not, and a couple of days ago they were defending USAID, right? But then they went, oh shit, we look like assholes defending this corrupt government bloated piece of shit. Let's switch our messaging to, oh, we're defending the CFPB. So, but listen to what Ayanna Pressley says right here. This is so fantastic.
Look, let me tell you something. I'll take a bit of umbrage here. I'll speak on behalf of my colleagues. I think I can say we are all willing to work with anyone who's serious about doing the work of censoring the American people and advancing progress. But they are not serious.
I love how there's not like a cheer, like there's kind of like this pause, like she's expecting an applause and everyone's like kind of standing there horrified, like, what did you just say? So she didn't get the applause break I think that she probably hoped for, but I'm going to move to the center. Anyway, the point being is that these guys look flat-footed now because they've been forced to defend this corporate bloat. And instead of just coming out and saying, I saw a clip today of Chuck Schumer saying, something to the effect of course there's government waste, but these guys are doing it all wrong. And So that's how they've had to shift their messaging. But I think in the long term, this is going to end up being good on a general, on a wide scale for everyone. And let me tell you why I think that. The first reason is because the MAGA movement has a lot of voices within it that are influential on the leadership. So in the MAGA movement, you have people like Tucker Carlson, who was recently seen at the White House. You have people like Candace Owens, who's, kind of a large, a larger voice, I think, pro-Trump voice that's not white, not a white person. So she has that going for her. And then you have people like Dave Smith, who Dave Smith literally goes out and debates people on behalf of, and makes the Palestinian argument, and he's a Jew. So I think that, on the Democratic side, however, you did have, I almost said today that there's more resistance to Israel within the MAGA movement than there is actually on the left in media spaces, I think. And I don't think that's necessarily true. That's not a credible claim to make. But at this point in time, who wields power, right? And the Republican administration, the Trump administration, has the reins of power. So the wisest thing to do would be to make your point politically to people that have the ear of the Trump administration. Now, again, someone like Tucker Carlson, if you pay attention to him at all, has been a very kind of like skeptical voice of the special relationship that we have with Israel. And he has a direct line to the president. So I see, for example, people being upset about Jimmy Dore. Now, yesterday, Jimmy Dore had Steve Bannon on. And, I keep seeing people on Twitter saying how Jimmy Dore has gone right wing because he's praising Elon or whatever. Jimmy Dore, let's keep it real here. Jimmy Dore has been right about literally everything. He's one of the few people who's had the balls to call out people like AOC when he was slandered as a misogynist and Me Too'd for it. And so he's one of the trusted voices in streaming for that, or, in political streaming for that reason. The other thing about Jimmy is Jimmy, unlike a lot of streamers, actually gets out in the fucking country and talks to people one-on-one through his comedy shows. Most of these cats are just sitting behind a desk at home, myself included. I'm not doing comedy tours. I'm not claiming to be some, but people like Joe Rogan and Jimmy Dore and Kurt Metzger are actually out in comedy clubs interacting regularly with normal everyday people. So that's another side of the, whole like, oh, Jimmy Dore is right wing, whatever. No, the Democrats are right wing, and the conversation has completely changed. And so, yes, you should be skeptical of Elon Musk, but also you shouldn't buy the hysteria of the fucking USAID funded media that, I make this point constantly, told you Biden was a viable candidate for president. It's such a night and day difference. Even if you hate Trump, and I've probably said this before, but I'm going to say it again, look at the difference in his presence versus Biden's. Biden was hid in a closet. The guy never talked. And when he did, it was scary because he'd, near fall asleep during his speeches. Remember when he introduced Zelensky as President Putin? Just these kind of constant blunders. Trump is on TV every day, taking questions from the press, from the Oval Office, or whatever he's doing. And so it's quite the contrast. But in defense of Jimmy Dore, I just wanted to pull out this tweet that I put out yesterday because it's something I got in my feelings about and I had to share. And I'm just going to read it to you real quick. And I said, Jimmy Dore is still the best political streamer in the game for having the balls to do things like the interview he did with right-wing demon Steve Bannon today. That was yesterday. Jimmy grilled him on common sense of Medicare for all and told him he thought Trump's Israel policy was terrible and would be his Achilles heel. So I want to just stop there for a second. On the Medicare for all thing, Jimmy, next time you get a Steve Bannon or a RFK Jr., because you will. That's the other thing I love about Tulsi and RFK Jr. and these people being in the government now. The podcast world has access to them. Tulsi Gabbard can go on Joe Rogan and talk about what she's finding at the DNI. Tulsi Gabbard has been on Jimmy Dore. RFK Jr. has been on Jimmy Dore. So, he can take these arguments. And I think, Jimmy, if you're listening, next time you talk to Steve Bannon, just bring up the fact that Trump has constantly said it's the era of common sense. How is it common sense to run our healthcare system the way that we run it? When he asked Bannon this question, Bannon deferred to RFK and was like, well, RFK, Maha, no. He kind of dodged it. But the modern version of the GOP is not your mom and dad's GOP. There's Steve Bannon. Agree or disagree with him, I like the guy because he's honest. He even told Jimmy, he's like, I'm kind of a hawk. He's like, I'm not a dove. But he also said we need to fucking cut the military. And it's unserious to say that we're going to fucking cut spending if we don't start with the military. And that's fucking something that I've been begging for, the Democrats to say. Now the Democrats can pile onto that argument and say, hey, guess what? Climate change, the military is the biggest polluter. They can start adding to the argument. But whatever the case, this is how you have a chance of actually affecting policy in real life, by interfacing with people like Bannon or Tucker Carlson, who wield real influence with the current administration. This is the thing that gets me the most pissed off about people in my space on the left, is that they're so willing to they just want to dunk on people so bad that they're willing to divide us up again over just like some minor disagreements, or even something like with Tulsi Gabbard. It's like, listen, of course Tulsi Gabbard isn't perfect, but is she the best fucking possible person that had a chance to be in charge of intelligence? Yes. 5 minutes ago, she was on a no-fly list. Like, the fact that she's controls the intelligence community after Hillary fucking Clinton accused her of being a Russian asset is massive. And the same goes for RFK Jr. This guy has been out there railing. The guy, like, I was just arguing with some cunts on comments somewhere. I'm not going to say what, well, okay, it was on Rolling Stone's comments. I'll leave it at that. But they were like, RFK Jr. confirmed. And, it was, the comments were just like a viper pit of dumb fucking shit lib stupidity. And, it was so funny because the guy's like, I said like, wow, Rolling Stone has really gone downhill. Like, you guys are such a joke of a publication these days, And this guy chimed in. He's like, why? Is it because they said that they didn't say that RFK Jr. did heroin? And my response to that was like, listen to your fucking selves. This is Rolling Stone comments. Rolling Stone, the magazine that's like promoting Bob Dylan and Steve fucking, Kurt Cobain, like all these people who did heroin, and you're, RFK did heroin, he's terrible. In the Rolling Stone comments. Get the fuck out of here, you clown ass motherfucker. So to summarize this, the last little blurb in my tweet here, there are a lot of uppity cunts who call themselves leftists that will accuse Jimmy of going right wing. This has been happening like every election cycle. I saw a bunch of people in my fucking For You thing the other day. Oh, Jimmy's going right wing. He's just a ball licker for Elon Musk now. No, he's just not the fucking cunt media that just fucking goes against Elon Musk to go against Elon Musk. He's actually reporting the truth instead of being an uppity cunt. So anyway, Jimmy going right wing so let me start over here. There are a lot of uppity cunts who call themselves leftists that will accuse Jimmy of going right wing, or for having conversations and praising some of the things Trump and Elon are doing. And those people are political hipsters. All that matters is their shitty little ineffectual club. They don't care about actually affecting any real change in real life. They're not the type of person like Jimmy Dore who is out in the goddamn public shaking hands and looking at people face to face, eye to eye, and talking to them, making real connections with people and seeing the country as a whole. They're not those people. And so I'm just, I had to rant about that because it fucking annoys me that people never learn that, people are still live in this paradigm, this left-right paradigm where, it's like, oh, they're the left. Conservatives do it too. Oh, the left. Yeah, Dick Cheney and John Bolton are on the left. They're Marxists. The fuck is wrong with you? It's clearly the Democrats are not the left. They never have been. In fact, they've done everything. The reason we're at this point right now when the election results came down, I almost made one of those stupid like confessional TikToks where I went, "Hello, Democrats. I'm the reason you lost. Blame me. It was my fault. I didn't vote for Democrats, and I haven't voted for Democrats, and I won't vote for Democrats because all Democrats have ever done to me, despite my trying to push their agenda in the outset. I mean, obviously their agenda is not the real Democrats' agenda. You know, it's not my agenda anymore. It's been perverted into something else. But all they did was kick us in the teeth every time and then expect us to keep voting for them. And the suckers that keep voting for them, goddamn, like you're beyond help. If you voted for Kamala Harris, I legitimately feel bad for you. You are a propagandized tool of a person who has no real connection to reality. You know, maybe you thought you were doing a good thing after 4 years of Biden. Even that's debatable. I don't know how you could look at that and go. So anyway, on the subject of Democrats being full of shit, I wanted to, and in shambles, I wanted to go through this article I saw that I thought was absolutely fucking hilarious. And it's from Politico, yours and mine favorite publication. Yours and my favorite publication. Forgive my poor English as I'm loading this up. Buffering. So this is the headline from Politico. Voters were right about the economy. The data was wrong. Here's why unemployment is higher, wages are lower, and growth less robust than government statistics suggest. So this article should actually be one line. You should just scroll down and it says, because the Democrats fucking lied in hopes of winning an election. But that's not what it's going to say. It's not, Politico's not that honest. Plus I'm sure they have like a word quota or something. Anyway, before the presidential election, many Democrats were puzzled by the seeming disconnect between economic reality as reflected in various government statistics. I mean, how fucking naive. Let me just stop right there. How fucking naive you have. Reflected in various government statistics. Oh, the government lied about its own data to win an election? How would they do that? Why would they do that? I don't even know. I'm baffled. I'm flabbergasted. This is my impression of Paul Krugman. No, I'm kidding. Paul Krugman knew they were lying. That's his job. That's why he sits in the Caymans and writes articles about how you're a dumbass if you think that the price of eggs has gone up, even though you can see it in your check register. Many in Washington bristled at the public's failure to register how strong the economy really was. So I'm going to take another aside here because I think this is the big thing that like lefty people might not get about what has happened with the Trump administration. These are the people that made me like the Trump administration, the Trump people. I didn't even like Trump, or like if the Democrats had actually, done left things and been a left party, I wouldn't even have to praise Trump and Elon for doing the stuff they're doing. But this line is just so perfect. Let's read that again. Many in Washington bristled at the public's failure to register how strong the economy really was. These people believe that, and even if you hate Trump with every fiber of your being, like you've been propagandized to, this is those people, these smug cunts who the people who believed this unapologetically, the Paul Krugmans of the world, the people who believed that, the people who bristled at the public's failure to register how strong the economy really was. Those people getting decimated in an election on its own is a massive win, whether you're right or left. So I just want to put that out there. They charged that right-wing echo chambers were conning voters into believing entirely preposterous narratives about America's decline. Every accusation is a confession with these people. That's literally what they did. The right-wing echo chambers were conning voters into believing entirely preposterous narratives about America's decline. So these people go out and they have this. And listen, I'm one of those people. in the Obama era, when my conservative friends were talking about the liberal media, I'm like, oh, fuck you. The media is not liberal. The media is conservative. It's run by moneyed interests. And this, again, just goes to show you that conservative and liberal don't mean anything. It's not a left versus right tug of war. It's a rich versus poor tug of war. And that right there is why I understand the intense kind of skepticism around Elon Musk. But also, it's like, okay, these same types of people were pulling the levers in the Biden administration. The difference is, instead of an Elon Musk who runs Twitter and gets contracts from the government, you had fucking Lloyd Austin, who was literally on the board of Raytheon, who literally worked directly for the defense contractors. So, maybe that's a step up. I don't know. I'm not arguing that it's incredibly better, but honestly, I think it is. At least for now, at least until I have evidence to the contrary, I think it's a step up. Because like I said, Elon Musk was not a partisan. It's not like he's just like, I'm a Republican. And that's the other thing I think is funny about the oligarchy claims, right? Like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, oligarchs, were with the Democrats until the Democrats lost, So this idea that the Democrats are like, oh, the oligarchy. Yeah, you're just mad because the oligarchy went to the other side because you lost power. What they rarely considered was whether something else might be responsible for the disconnect. Whether, for instance, government statistics were fundamentally flawed. What if the numbers supporting the case for broad-based prosperity were themselves misrepresentations? What if, in fact, darker assessments of the economy were more authentically tethered to reality? Now, again, this is why you lost, Democrats. No, we know the truth. We're the smart ones. We're going to tell you that the economy's good. I don't care how much fucking you can track the price of eggs going up in your check register. And nowadays, these guys are if you go on Twitter, all you see is the liberal echo chamber tweeting about the price of eggs. And I just want to, again, share this meme that I made with you because I've been throwing it out a lot and it's been making people really mad, at least brunch liberals. But this is exactly how this played out. This is the price. So this chart too, actually, this is the average price of eggs, and the source is what is it? It's like it has the source in the corner. It's like the BLS is the source. So this is the price of a dozen eggs starting at the end of 2021 through the end of 2022, and you can see just the chart of that. And these guys get in and they're like, oh, now Trump. So brunch liberals, when Biden's president, here's the actual rise of the price over the, a year of the Biden presidency. And now they're seeing it now that, Trump is president, of course, because they're brunch liberals. So let me read just a little bit more of this Politico article before we move on from this. On some level, I relate to underlying frustrations. Having served as comptroller of the currency during the 1990s, I've spent substantial chunks of my career exploring the gaps between public perception and economic reality, particularly in the realm of finance. Many of the officials I've befriended and advised over the last quarter century, members of the Federal Reserve, those running regulatory agencies, many leaders in Congress, have told me they consider it their responsibility to set public opinion aside and deal with the economy as it exists by the hard numbers. For them, government statistics are thought to be as reliable as solid facts. In recent years, however, as my focus has broadened beyond finance to the economy as a whole, the disconnect between hard government numbers and popular perception has spurred me to question the faith. I've had the benefit of living in two realms that seem rarely to intersect. One as a Washington insider, the other as an advisor to lenders and investors across the country. Okay, wait a minute. Two realms that rarely intersect. I would, an advisor to lenders and a Washington insider. Yeah, those realms intersect quite a bit, my friend. I'm sorry to tell you. Toggling between the two has led me to be increasingly skeptical that the government's measurements properly capture the realities defining unemployment, wage growth, the strength of the economy as a whole. So if you've lived in this economy for the last, 5 years, you know that they are full of shit. And again, that's another reason these people lost the election, because people knew they were full of shit. Like, oh, Paul Krugman's going to tell me that the economy is great and I need to suck it up. Like, why don't you come fucking live in Detroit and shop for groceries, Paul Krugman, you piece of shit, writing your New York Times screeds from the fucking Cayman Islands or wherever you're at. And I have Paul Krugman's The Great Unraveling on my bookshelf. I don't show my bookshelf on here because I'm not that cool. But anyway, another really pathetic moment in recent Democrat response to Trump I want to talk about here before we cut out is this this USAID thing. So I had this tweet the other day about Kyle and Crystal, actually probably this morning, but to me it's pretty clear that Crystal and Kyle are getting some kind of USAID money because they have just gotten so incredibly desperate since this election, and they're one of the people who are screaming about the oligarchs and stuff now. And I think it's probably because they're going to lose a paycheck, or they lost a paycheck from the closing of USAID, which also I think is, again, the USAID thing. Let me take a sip of this real quick. It's such an illustrative moment for politics in general, because this is the thing about the oligarchs that I just want to remind you of. Again, without the Bernie Sanders movement, or Bernie Sanders himself, would never have gotten this far. With all the stuff that they fired at Trump, the fucking lawsuits, the actual bullets, the accusations of being a Russian spy, Bernie Sanders would not have been able to make it through that. If you saw Steve Bannon on Jimmy Dore the other day, these guys were put in jail. Like the lawfare is very real for them. But also, a guy like Steve Bannon has millions of dollars that he can afford to pony up for lawyers. So it's, as much as I don't like having to side with oligarchs or whatever to get some real change in our government, it's the only way it's going to happen. And, the Elon Musk thing, I think it's such a kind of dividing line right now, because it's not that I think Elon Musk is the savior or this great person, or that I don't have my qualms about Elon Musk. But in some of this kind of like lefty podcast world, you can't have a nuanced viewpoint, because if you do, you're right wing, and that is it's a dead paradigm. Right wing doesn't mean anything anymore. Left wing doesn't mean anything, because the Democrats are more hawkish than the Republicans and more willing to stomp the left. If you noticed, the MAGA movement brought the left on board. They brought Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy into their wings. Robert F. Kennedy is to the left of the Democrats, except for on Israel. That's the one issue they are all fucking uniform on. Ask yourself why. I think you probably know why. But if you want, you have to set that issue. As much as I don't want to say like you have to. I was going to say you have to set that issue aside. You don't have to set it aside. You have to understand that no matter who, I can't think of anyone in modern politics that's close to the levers of power that I trust on this issue. And so it's kind of like one of those things that you have to throw caution to the wind and unite with oppositional movements. Like I said before, there's a much more loud chorus of legitimate voices that are influential to power in MAGA right now than there are, in the Democratic podcast space. You have Dave Smith, you have Candace Owens, you have Tucker Carlson out there kind of pushing the administration on this issue. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. This is just another example of how stupid things are getting. These guys are trying to look like they're protesting this. It's hard. It's honestly hard for like corporate interests, fake corporate interests, to look like they're oppositional to other corporate interests. And that's kind of the world that the Democrats have walled themselves into. They used to have, integrity and used to have, some kind of a moral foundation to stand on as oppositional to, an Elon Musk hostile takeover or whatever you want to say about it. But this is one other thing I want to talk about before I show you this, and that is, I feel like change is necessary, even if you don't like it, or even if it's done in a way that you don't agree with. I think it's Keaton that says this a lot. The new mantra of people like Elon Musk is move fast and break things. Maybe to some extent. And honestly, when you hear the way they talk about the way the treasury payments and stuff are done, it's probably time to do that. But also, you don't just leave them broken when they break. When they break, you go, why did that break? And then you fix it and it doesn't break like that again. So it's a little bit of a sloppy kind of way of doing things in the internet age, but in a lot of ways, it's a good way to be, especially when you're doing, anything related to online media, because if you slow down and you spend too much time kind of like tweaking things to perfection, you're behind. So, anyway, total aside, but watch this. This is hilarious.
I don't swear in public very well, but we have to fuck Trump. Please don't tell my children that I just did that.
Yeah, that's like kind of a Freudian slip, right? What this reminds me of is, I'm a divorced single male, so in recent years I've been on social media apps. And listen, if you're married or have a good significant other, please like cling to them, keep them, because it's fucking shitty out there. But what this reminded me of is when I'm on like dating apps and stuff and I'm flipping through looking at women, it's like you'll see these like, I'm an empowered feminist who wants to be dominated by a strong man. It's kind of like that kind of thing where it's like, I think a lot of men just don't get it. Like primally and evolutionarily, it's like women, they might not admit it on the surface, but they definitely want someone that they perceive can protect them, or even sometimes that they're scared of. That's one of the reasons that, convicted like serial killers get love letters and marriage proposals while they're on death row. You know what I mean? The female psyche is, no offense, women, I love you, but we have different modalities. Neither is better than the other, but women are definitely a little more emotionally driven than men are. And believe me, there are plenty of men that are emotionally driven. Don't get me wrong. I'm not making that generalization. But anyway, I just thought that was a funny little Freudian aside of this woman saying she needs to fuck Trump. I don't know if I'm not sure that's exactly what she meant, but it's funny nonetheless. And so with that, I just want to say, don't let the hysteria get to you. I've let it get to me a little bit sometimes, and I look around and I go, you know what? Change is necessary. And like I said, move fast and break things doesn't mean don't fix things too. So like the stuff that's going on, I think will iron itself out in a few months. And honestly, this is what I'm excited about. RFK and Tulsi in those administrative roles, Trump coming in with a mentality of dismantle the administrative state, there's a good chance that it goes really badly and that the next election cycle is a complete, change where people are like, oh, let's refund all that stuff. Who knows? But in the short term, I think that any interruption of the status quo, and this is a point that Nick from Revolutionary Blackout Network made before the election that I thought was completely fantastic, was that the status quo needs to be interrupted. The worst case scenario would have been that Democrats won and were able to just continue things going as is. At least now, and you see this happening already, liberals are suddenly like, oh, what about Gaza? Ooh. Oh, thanks. We were all here like 2 years ago, what about the egg prices? Yeah. Oh, you just woke up to that now because it's Trump's fault now that he's in control. And I said this before the election. I knew this dynamic would shift, which is why I was fine with Trump winning. And probably would have even voted for him. I've said that myself, but I didn't vote this cycle. So you can't blame me for anything except withholding my vote from the Democrats, which I've given to them religiously for several years. And I'm so glad that they lost. But let's watch how things unfold tonight, because now that Tulsi Gabbard's in there, we can hold our feet to the fire. Because like I said, there are enough voices that are, that are skeptical of our vassal state in the Middle East, in the MAGA movement, that will go at Tulsi in a good way. Dave Smith being a great example. Candace Owens. I keep repeating these names, but you see even people like Jake Shields, who I think is being kind of unfairly smeared as an anti-Semite because he rides the let's question Israel thing a little harder than most. But there's a big difference between, calling out that kind of stuff and just being an out and out anti-Semite. There's definitely real power structures that you can visibly call out and say, hey, look at this, and that's fine. By the same token, the strongest voices against what's going on in the Middle East right now are Jewish. So the idea that like, oh, the Jews, no, it's just as dumb. Trying to blame Jewish people, every Jewish person, or for what's going on right now in the Middle East is the same as like, trying to blame every black person for Black Lives Matter. It's not a Jewish thing, it's a Zionist thing. And what's always interesting to me about those Israeli interviews is all these guys have like Scottish accents and stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't this guy from the Middle East? You got like the IDF captain on the news, like, did you mean to hit those kids? He's like, oh, we're doing an investigation, we're gonna figure it out. We're looking into it. He's like, oh, we're looking into it. It's like, what? This guy's Israeli? And he has like a Scottish accent. I forgot to do my Scottish accent. So just be consistent, and I'm going to be watching very closely to see how the next couple of years play out. And I'll be right with you, at lobbying Tulsi Gabbard to pardon Ed Snowden and pardon Julian Assange. It's great that he's out. That's one thing that I when I think about it, I can't give the Biden administration credit for it because they're largely behind him being in jail to begin with. But at least he was let out on their watch. Let's put it that way. And Trump can one-up them by pardoning him. And let's see if he's got the balls to do it. Again, it's given the stuff he did. And I said this earlier too. He already pardoned Ross Ulbricht from Silk Road. So that's a good sign, and Tulsi being confirmed for DNI, people impugn her for her, flip-flopping or the things that she did. But did you watch those hearings when the congressmen were trying to get her to call Ed Snowden a traitor, and she wouldn't do it? She wouldn't do it. And Ed Snowden even tweeted out, he blocked me for some reason. God knows why. But Ed Snowden even tweeted out, I just had an epiphany. Let me finish this thought. Ed Snowden even tweeted out to Tulsi, hey, if you need to lie about me, do it to get in there. Tell him I'm a traitor if that's what you need to do to get in there. And so that, again, is another sign that the people that are kind of like, oh, fuck Tulsi, she's a fucking Zionist, whatever. Listen, I don't disagree with you, but also who else is gonna like realistically be in that seat that is better? You know what I mean? Especially under this administration. So that's the thing I implore my fellow lefty thought thinkers to kind of engage with, like this process that, yeah, there is like our hopes and dreams. I would love Shama Sawant as president, with Jeremy Corbyn as vice president, whatever, insert someone else who's like a legit principled left-leaning thinker. Great. That would be a fantastic, but that's not the fucking reality that we have right now. And so if you want to actually affect some change, you have to deal with the political reality. And that's why I commend people like Jimmy who are having conversations with the MAGA crowd and making these bonds, that like building consensus on issues where we agree, because there are a lot and the immigration thing is one of those things where I never saw it this way until I saw these people making an argument for it. But a little bit stronger immigration policy could help the economy. Like it could help the job market. We'll see. We're going to find out, And the other thing I would say is, I have on that note, it's like I have, and all of us have this kind of preconceived notion of how things are supposed to work. And this goes for even with the Israel thing, like getting America involved. I saw Hegseth saying that, no American troops are going to Gaza. So that's a good thing. But by the same token, it's like, I think Trump is enough of a disruptor, and he has, Elon Musk with him to kind of help him with the actual procedural elements of this. He's enough of a disruptor that maybe some of his ideas, even though they kind of seem outlandish on the surface, could work, and this goes back to what I was saying about having to have oligarchs on your side to fucking change the system. It's just the fucking political reality. As much as I would love it if the Bernie Sanders movement hadn't been torpedoed by the Democrats and he was in the White House right now, that's just not how it is. And so for me, it's like, I see these opportunities with someone like Tulsi and RFK in the Trump administration to get policy wins on stuff that I believe in. I don't give a fuck if it's a right or left wing administration that does it. I just want the goddamn policy. And that's what kind of pisses me off about these little cliquish fucks that are like, oh, well, Jimmy Dore went right wing. He's right wing now. And I'm a hipster who's not going to watch his show. He's canceled. Here's people that are really legit. I love due dissidents. I think that those guys, they're legit good people. They see things clearly. But I disagree with them sometimes, and I'm not going to fucking turn their show off or not watch them anymore. I fucking love those guys. And I think that's the attitude I hope that all of us will have. It's like, hey, look, we might disagree on some of the finer points of some of this shit. We might have preconceived notions of how things should and shouldn't be, but let's not like cut each other off and like cancel each other and create this atmosphere of fucking competition over a non-existent premise. Like whether Tulsi's a fucking Zionist or not, like who's going to replace her that's better? Like the reality is she's there, and there's so many other things aside from that are good that I can't help but think, once she gets in there and has a little bit more pull and kind of has a grasp of the reins of things, maybe her views will change. Maybe she'll see some documents. Trump said it himself. Let me play this little sample I got for you. This is Trump's take on this.
You have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected.
Yeah. So you got to get elected. So, listen, again, I'm not saying that I trust Tulsi completely on the Zionist issue, but I'm saying it's pretty clear there are certain rings you have to kiss if you want to sit in a desk in Washington. And I'm not given the comment that Snowden made, and given Tulsi Gabbard's track record as a person, just fucking Christ, man. 5 minutes ago, they're still calling her John Bolton. Like that alone, John Bolton and Dick Cheney and John Brennan and all the worst, scummiest cunts of the neocon era are out there like, Tulsi Gabbard is a threat to America. She's a threat. That alone to me is get her in there right now, because these scum cunts are the ones who have been ruining things from day one. And despite my disagreements with Tulsi Gabbard on, the Middle East thing, or even some of her like far right religious beliefs, I hate all that shit. But by the same token, I know as a person, she has integrity. She stepped down from the DNC. And is there a bigger disappointment than I used to say Barack Obama was the biggest political disappointment of my lifetime? Now it's Bernie Sanders to the T. What a joke of how does someone literally live up to every goddamn aspersion that was cast on him? Literally like, oh, he's just a fake ass socialist with 3 houses. Yeah, he is. Holy fucking shit. Conservatives were right again. Just like they were right about AOC being a fucking DEI plant who fucking isn't going to do anything but suck Pelosi's toes. They were right about that. You know, the entire squad. That's why it's so frustrating, you know, and again, just based on the massive L the Democrats took, I'm very happy. And I think that the left, people like myself and Nick Cruz, and is going to get a lot more from the Trump administration than we ever got from the Democrats. The libertarians, they got their fucking action item, voting for Trump, you know, helping Trump win. RFK Jr., you know, see, and that's the other thing is like Trump played politics the right way. He built coalitions. He built coalitions with people that might not agree on every single thing. You listen to RFK talk, he's like, me and Trump don't agree on everything, but we're going to make America healthy again. There you go. Why can't the Democrats do that? No, they build coalitions with people like John Bolton and Dick Cheney, and then they stomp people like you and me in the face. And now that Elon and Trump are in there actually doing stuff that they ran on, now they're fascists and they're right wing and they're terrible, terrible people. Elon retweeted a clip earlier. I should probably pull it up and play it, but of the Democrats literally saying all the things. This will be our swan song before we go. Of a Democrat literally saying all the things, of Democrats saying all the things that Trump and JD Vance and Elon are doing right now. And it's that kind of stuff that makes me go, okay, you know, just that little trip down memory lane reminded me how quickly things get how quickly things get lost down the memory hole. Also, and you know, say what you want about it, Elon Musk retweeted the other day WikiLeaks and said Assange is right. Now, does that mean he's going to tell Trump to pardon him? Probably not, but you should see the comments because everyone in the comments is going, hey, why don't you pardon him, Elon? Why don't we pardon him? Let's see if I got to find this now because I said I was going to find it. Why did I retweet that? No. Where's God? Elon tweets a lot. Like, where's that tweet he shared the other day with the Democrats? All right. Well, oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay, check this out. Before we go, here is the Democratic Party just a couple years ago. Well, not even just a couple years ago.
The president will.
Hold on, let me start this over. Get you full screen here.
This report tells us how to cut waste, cut red tape, streamline the bureaucracy, change procurement rules, change the personnel rules, and create a government that works better and costs less.
I've read it, and where it says the president should, the president will.
Among the 800 recommendations, eliminating 12% of the federal workforce, merging some government agencies like the FBI, the DEA, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, closing hundreds of government offices outside Washington.
From the day I took office, one of the commitments that I made to the American people was that we would do a better job here in Washington in rooting out wasteful spending. We thought that it was entirely appropriate for our governments and our agencies to try to root out waste, large and small, in a systematic way. It means cutting some programs that I think are worthy, but we may not be able to afford right now. A lot of the action is in Congress, legislative, but in the meantime, we don't need to wait for Congress in order to do something about wasteful spending that's out there. We haven't seen as much action out of Congress as we'd like, and that's why we launched on our own initiative the campaign to cut waste. And we're going to keep on finding every possible way that we can do that, even if Congress is not.
So the big difference between Trump and Elon and the Democrats here is they're actually doing something. They're actually doing something. And I think that, like it or not, the freeze and the going into the treasury and figuring out the nuts and bolts of how this works is the best way to do it. So thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. Hit me in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Take good care.